Do you know that the Kingdom of Bhutan is known as one of the most isolated destinations in the world? It is a mountainous country located at the eastern end of the Himalayas, which makes it difficult to access and communicate with other countries. However, they also intentionally isolate themselves to preserve their culture and independence. Bhutan is one of the few countries where you can see minimal influence from modern culture. In 1974, the Bhutanese government began allowing foreigners to enter the country, but in very limited numbers. In the 18th century, the British tried to establish relations, but were unsuccessful. And to this day, only a few countries have diplomatic relations with Bhutan. This makes it one of the most authentic places in the world, as it still maintains its traditions, customs, architecture, and ancestral communities. But I can tell you many other interesting facts about this country. Stay with me, because Bhutan truly is a unique country that you should pay close attention to. Firstly, in Bhutan, success is not measured by gross domestic product, but by happiness. They focus on gross national happiness, which is based on the idea that a nation's true wealth lies not in money or material goods, but in the well-being and happiness of its people. This data is measured through four main pillars: sustainable socioeconomic development, environmental preservation, cultural preservation, and good governance. They even have a Minister of Happiness, whose job is to promote and achieve the population's well-being. The King of Bhutan, whom I will talk about shortly, has stated many times that the happiness of his people is more important than material wealth. Therefore, Bhutan is far from capitalism, which means they do not have high material wealth, although culturally, they value spiritual wealth more, which, as you will see, they have in abundance. Secondly, Bhutan is one of the smallest countries in the world, with an area of 38,000 square kilometers and a population of about 800,000 people. The Bhutanese have a strong connection with nature, developed spirituality, and pay great attention to healthcare and the environment. It is the first country to become carbon negative, meaning it absorbs more carbon dioxide than it emits. Additionally, it is the only country in the world where the sale and production of tobacco are banned, a measure aimed at protecting the health of its citizens and promoting a healthier lifestyle. Thirdly, Bhutan remained isolated until recently. The country began to open up to the world since the 1960s, during the reign of Bhutan's third king, Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, when the country began the modernization process to improve the quality of life of its people and develop diplomatic relations with other countries. Although initially the restrictions were very strict, in 1974, Bhutan allowed a limited number of foreign tourists to enter. This tourism restriction policy is called high-value, low-impact tourism, aimed at protecting Bhutan's environment, culture, and traditions, while generating revenue to finance development and improve the lives of its citizens. Additionally, Bhutan established diplomatic relations with countries like India in 1949 and joined international organizations like the United Nations in 1971, which also contributed to opening the country to the world. There is internet in the country, which inevitably influences the population, especially the younger generation. However, Bhutan remains relatively isolated and distant from other countries, a fact reflected in the reality that it currently has embassies or consulates only in Australia, Thailand, Belgium, Bangladesh, Kuwait, India, Switzerland, and the United States. They have maintained a policy of neutrality in international affairs, avoiding involvement in conflicts and political alliances. Fourthly, Portuguese Jesuits, Estevão Casella and João Cabral, were the first Europeans to arrive in Bhutan in 1627, when they traveled through Tibet and entered Bhutan via the Jamri route while searching for a path to India. These missionaries met the regional leader, Zhabdrung Ngawang Namgyal, and stayed in Bhutan for several months before continuing their journey to India. In the 18th and 19th centuries, there were several interactions between Bhutan and Europe, especially with the British who then ruled India. In 1774, British George Bogle was sent to Bhutan as an envoy from the East India Company to establish formal relations. He was unsuccessful, but he left detailed notes about his journey and his encounters with the Bhutanese. Fifthly, mass media arrived in Bhutan quite late compared to most countries in the world. In 1999, the government finally allowed television and internet access, which was part of an effort to modernize the country and improve the quality of life of its people. Additionally, the country was the last to introduce radio in 1988. Even so, the government has maintained certain controls over content, promoting educational and cultural programs rather than purely commercial or entertainment content. Sixthly, due to this isolation from the world, Bhutanese people did not know that cannabis plants could be consumed until radio and television arrived. Before they knew this, the locals collected and prepared it to be given to pigs. Currently, it is illegal and can result in prison sentences of up to 5 years. Seventhly, until 1961, Bhutan did not have paved roads, and the only way to travel was by foot or horseback. Now, the most common forms of transportation are private vehicles, taxis, and buses, the latter connecting major cities. For air transportation, there are 4 airports throughout the country, although flights are limited in more remote areas due to mountainous geography and lack of infrastructure. There are 3 main options: walking, riding horses, and riding yaks, although yaks are more often used as pack animals. Additionally, Bhutan is one of the few countries without trains or railway lines. Eighthly, modern postal services in Bhutan were established in 1962. Previously, there was a primitive messaging system through foot couriers who transported important messages and packages between districts and villages in the country. Ninthly, Paro International Airport is the only international airport in Bhutan, the main gateway to the country for most tourists. This airport is known as one of the most difficult and dangerous airports in the world to land and take off due to its complicated geographical conditions, located at an altitude of 2,235 meters. When landing, pilots must navigate between mountains, sometimes correcting their course, and landing quickly on a runway only 1,200 meters long. Landings can only be made during the day, and if there are clouds or other adverse weather conditions, flights may be diverted. Additionally, it is done manually following procedures designed by experienced pilots. Only a few pilots worldwide are qualified to land at this airport. The 2 national airlines, Druk Air and Bhutan Airlines, operate flights to and from destinations such as India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Singapore. Tenthly, Bhutanese kings have ruled since the establishment of the monarchy in 1907, when Ugyen Wangchuck was crowned as the first Dragon King. Since then, the monarchy has passed through 5 generations of the same family. Currently, the king is Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, also known as Druk Gyalpo, who was crowned in 2008 after his father, King Jigme Singye Wangchuck, abdicated. Druk Gyalpo is known for his charisma and closeness to his people.